All set.
Wonderful. Thank you all for joining us again today. Whether this is your first webinar with us or your 30th, we are glad you're here. We really appreciate you spending your lunchtime with us. Um, Today's webinar should take about an hour. We're here with Joshua Webb from, sorry, of course, now my phone decides to ring, right? Joshua Webb with Crime Stoppers. We are so glad to have you here. I'm going to go over a little bit of the rules of the road first and what we expect from today's webinar. Um, we are recording today's presentation, so we will send this to you a little later today. We'll send both the link to our webinar on our YouTube channel. All of our webinars go there after we record them. And then we're also going to send out the slides. So any questions you have, you can reach out to me or Joshua. You'll have all of our contact information and you'll be able to look at our slides again. We also put these on our podcast. So if you prefer to listen instead of watching the webinar, feel free to do that. We cannot hear you or see you as our audience members. I see that there's 27 of you out there, but I can't see your video or anything like that. So if you are enjoying your lunch or having a snack or a beverage, don't worry at all about that. And I've got a great big bowl of salad here in front of me. If you happen to see me munching, just pretend you didn't. So Consolidated Planning Group, we are a holistic financial planning firm located just outside of Houston, Texas. We, love the internet. We love Zoom. And because of Zoom, we are able to work with families all across Texas and all across the United States. We've been doing this for over 30 years, and we decided to turn our entire company to be focused on families with special needs loved ones because the owner of our company has two special needs kids. They're adult kids now, but anyway, she saw how complicated this whole process was and how much there was to know and the nuances and ins and outs. She said, you know what? We're going to help others by doing these webinars and by focusing on their needs so that you don't have to go through the same level of difficulty that she did. So we're switching you down to easy mode when you work with us. We do have, like I said, over 30 years of experience with insurance, financial services, securities, things like that. We are fully licensed in those areas. We are also members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and we are nationally certified Social Security advisors. So on the next slide, families come to us for special needs planning, and you might be thinking, what does that even mean? Well, we do lifetime protection plans for your family. We're thinking insurance here, disability protection, making sure you are going to have enough money to give you a nice retirement, but also leave money for your loved ones, especially if those loved ones might not ever be independent or might not truly be able to work for themselves. We offer lifetime care planning. And again, how much is that lifetime of care going to cost you? It's kind of like a third bucket of retirement. If you have a spouse, you have your retirement account and your spouse's retirement account, and you have to save for that. But when you have a child with some sort of intellectual or developmental disability, they need your help too. We help with transition planning. A lot happens when your child transitions from high school out into the real world. When they turn 18, there's a lot that changes, and we want to make sure that you know all about that. We help people sign up for ABLE accounts. And of course, like I said, we're here to educate you and advocate for you. Out of the 263,000 financial advisors across the United States, there are fewer than 200, not 200,000 out of 263,000, just 200 firms who focus on special needs planning like we do. That's fewer than 0.1%. So you are definitely in the right space when you're meeting with Consolidated Planning Group. So when we're talking about planning, it's really important to start as early as possible. If you haven't started yet, now is the time. We're not going to, put you to shame or beat you up for what you haven't done yet. We want to look at what good planning you've already done and help you move forward from here, making sure that you've got all your boxes checked. Think about who's going to take care of your loved one once you're gone. There are vocational options, there are educational options, and there are residential options. What does that all look like for you and your family? And think long and hard before you just say, oh, an older sibling is going to take care of them or something like that, because that can create friction in your family. And we want to avoid that if possible. So think about that. Check into what's going to happen after high school so that your child does not just graduate to the couch, and plan early as possible. So that's all I have. I do have some more at the end, but I want to turn this all over to you, Joshua. He is going to talk to us about Crime Stoppers and ways that we could help keep our loved ones safe. Please put any questions and comments you have in the chat box, and I'll keep an eye on that for you.
All righty. Good morning, everyone. Good, I guess, afternoon. It is technically after 12 noon. My name is Joshua Webb. I get to work for an organization called Crime Stoppers of Houston. If you are familiar with us, if you've heard of us, great. If not, that is also great. I'll spend just a few minutes telling you all about who Crime Stoppers is, who we are, what we do, and then we'll jump into the topic for this afternoon, which is cyber safety. Again, my name is Joshua Webb. My email address is right there at the bottom of your screen, jwebb@crime-stoppers.org. That QR code there on your screen will take you to a digital business card, a page called Hi Hello. On that page, you'll find a link to our resource center. At Crime Stoppers, we talk about 20 plus different topics, everything from active shooter to bullying prevention, cyber safety, domestic violence, human trafficking, the list goes on and on. And so you can find safety tips, blog posts, videos on all of those different topics on our resource center on our website. That QR code will also take you to a page that has our different social media pages. So our LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. If you would like to stay connected, would like to find out more information about any and everything that Crime Stoppers is up to, you can definitely stay connected through our social media pages. We are a nonprofit organization here at Houston, and our programming is split into our Safe School Institute and our Safe Community Institute. Our Safe School Institute focuses on students and educators, and our Safe Community Institute focuses on everybody else, all the adults, parents, anybody in the community, churches, universities, businesses that want some information on any and all things public safety. We also have our Victims Services Program, a community for people that have either been victimized or are family members of a person that has been victimized, whether it is an assault, a robbery, even homicide, right? Making sure that people, number one, feel connected, feel supported, but are also advocated for throughout the trial process and even years later once an offender becomes eligible for parole, making sure that we are still prioritizing and amplifying the voices of victims throughout the entire process. Our Balanced Voice podcast, hosted by our CEO, Renee Mancarios, and one of our board members and just general community advocate, Jennifer Holman. If y'all are into true crime or you enjoy this presentation, would like some more information on a related or completely separate topic, that podcast, we just launched our 8th season, I believe. And so I'm sure that you can find an episode on there that you would enjoy. And then lastly, our Glenda Gordy Research Center, making sure that we are making crime data for the Harris County easily accessible in one place. So all 4 of those programs falling under our Safe Community Institute. And that is part of my responsibility here at Crime Stoppers, just to make sure all those things go off without a hitch. We are a nonprofit organization here at Crime Stoppers of Houston. I myself am not a police officer. We do work hand in hand with not only law enforcement, with elected officials, community partners, whether they're in the media, regular citizens that help us with our mission, help us advance our mission of solving crime and preventing crime. We solve crime with our tip line, a completely anonymous way to report any kind of crime or illegal activity. There are 3 different ways to report a tip here at Crime Stoppers of Houston. The first is our hotline. You may have heard of it, 713-222-TIPS. That's 222-8477. We have a mobile app as well for phones and tablets. So if you have screenshots or pictures of videos, you can upload those directly with your tip if you use the app or use the website at crime-stoppers.org. All three methods are completely anonymous and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And as I said, the Crime Stoppers tip line is completely anonymous. That is by Texas state law. Legally, we cannot collect any kind of identifying information on a tipster, somebody who calls to report a tip. That's name, phone number, physical address, email address. If it's a student tip, we don't know where that student is a student at, where they're attending school. All we want to know is the information that's going to help us stop a crime. And if the tipster does give us a tip that helps us solve that crime, they are eligible for a cash reward of up to $5,000. I know what you're thinking. If it's completely anonymous, how do I get my cash? Let me tell you. Once you submit a tip to Crime Stoppers, we give you two things. Number one, we give you a specific code number. That code number is the only way that we're able to associate an individual with a tip with a case. The second thing we give you is a specific date to call us back. So you call us back on that date with that code number, and we let you know if your tip did help us solve a crime. And if it did, there is a specific bank that we use that will give you your cash reward. Very simple, very easy, and again, completely anonymous. So whether it is cyberbullying, whether it's vandalism, whether it is family violence, if it's somebody harming themselves, whatever it is, you can report it to Crime Stoppers of Houston completely anonymously. And if the tip that we receive from you helps us solve a crime, you are eligible for a cash reward of up to $5,000. So that's just how we solve crimes. That's just one half of our mission, is that crime solving. But again, we also work to prevent crime. So through these different presentations, different outreach events, that is what we seek to do. So this afternoon, for the next 40 or I just have about 40 minutes, I will talk all about cyber safety, the things that we can do to keep ourselves safe and our loved ones safe. I'm going to start with a 3-minute video from our friends at Common Sense Media. Common Sense is the first resource that I'll share with you all this afternoon. If you would like some more information following this presentation on anything cyber, or really media, whether it's games, movies, TV shows, music, Common Sense Media has a lot of safety tips and information. So a very brief video from them to start this presentation.
Every generation has been skeptical or fearful of the technology of the new generation. Maybe there's a reason that there's this apprehension and this fear, because maybe we are moving further and further away from our humanity.
We talk about addiction, we tend to think, oh, this is just happening by accident culturally. Like, what are the kids doing these days? What we miss is that this is happening by design.
They wake up and they just have to get right back to it.
I go on my phone, then I'll check my Instagram, Snapchat, Kik, Twitter, Tumblr.
They believe it's one of their human rights to have one of their devices attached to them 24 hours a day.
Seeing actual kids sort of disappear from the world is nothing short of terrifying.
You're more likely to use social media compulsively.
You want to keep on it to keep getting
the good feelings.
If my parents saw some of the things that I saw on social media, I think they would be very shocked.
It's known as TikTok, settling allegations it violated children's privacy laws.
The attack was teased in advance on social media and live streamed for 17 minutes on Facebook.
We spent $1 million harvesting tens of millions of Facebook profiles as the basis of the algorithms of Cambridge Analytica itself.
And that was a big mistake. And I'm sorry.
This is changing our culture. And this is not a partisan issue. The central goal for us is to do a multi-year campaign that educates parents, kids, and everybody about the addictive quality of cell phones and other devices.
A landmark report has just been released into how kids in the U.S. between 8 and 18 spend their time using media and technology.
Common Sense Media, a charity promoting digital privacy for children, pushed for this new legislation.
I think it is time for us to have a very important national conversation. You need to educate kids and parents, you need to pass laws, and you also have to hold the industry's feet to the fire.
Details on the next version of Apple's operating system, which will have a number of ways to cut down on screen time.
Recently, Google introduced very various digital well-being tools.
As leaders of governments, as decision makers in business, and as citizens, we must ask ourselves, what kind of world do we want to live in? And those of us who believe in technology's potential for good must not shrink from this moment.
We want our students to be great 21st century learners, but also learn how to be safe, how to protect themselves. They just need the tools. They just need a chance, right?
So I think that video does a wonderful job of kind of introducing all the things that we're going to talk about this afternoon and kind of addresses some of the concerns that y'all might have when it comes to cyber safety, whether it's concerns about our privacy. You know, there was a whole Senate hearing featuring Mark Zuckerberg and a lot of other leaders of the tech industry when it came to what are these companies doing with our privacy, with our personal information. That video brought up the idea of addiction to technology. We'll talk about that in a second, but kids and adults are spending way too much time online, and a lot of that isn't necessarily by choice. We lose track of time. We lose sense of ourselves sometimes by just scrolling. So how can we rein that in? How can we get back control of ourselves from these different companies? So starting with a very kind of foundational introduction into what the internet is, right? Number one, it's a shared space. When we're doing cyber safety presentations with students, we tell them, kids younger than you are on the internet, your peers, your classmates, your teachers, your parents, the police and other good guys, but also bad guys as well. So you can be exposed to a lot of really different things. It might be scary, might make you feel gross, might make you feel sad, mad, might make you feel happy, right? So how can we handle and navigate being exposed to all these different things that we might see, whether accidentally or on purpose? The internet is absolutely not private, right? No matter what we do, there is no way to completely guarantee our privacy on the internet. It doesn't matter if we have a private Instagram account and only have 10 followers, right? If one of those followers takes a screenshot of something that we post, that post is no longer private. And all of that stuff is permanent. I always think of the app Snapchat. Snapchat is an incredibly popular app amongst kids and young people. It allows you to send pictures and videos and even text messages back and forth. But the thing about Snapchat is that the messages disappear in a relatively short time. They don't actually disappear, though. They may disappear from the individual user's device, but all of these companies still have servers, giant computers where they store all of our content, everything that we send and receive. So just because it's gone for us doesn't mean that it's gone forever. And it is still there out in the ether somewhere. A few internet facts. We have seen that the first age that a child is victimized online is between the ages of 10 and 14. Now, this is probably because this is when they're getting their first devices, right? I got my first Xbox at around 12 years old, right? So for the first time, I can now communicate with random people out in the world as I'm playing Madden NFL or Call of Duty. That's the same thing for a lot of our students today, whether it's their first gaming console, their first cell phone, right? They are getting them maybe 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And now for the first time, they're getting friend requests from strangers. They're getting unsolicited pictures from strangers. They're getting asked to send pictures by strangers, right? So how can we, again, at a very, very early age, help them develop the tools and the skills to be on the internet safely? Because we can't keep them off the internet forever, especially not in 2024. Kids have to know how to use computers and tablets and cell phones just to exist. And so the solution up to it isn't necessarily keeping them locked away in a closet and keeping them away from the internet for the rest of their lives, right? We have to give them the tools to do it safely. One of those tools is knowing how to report inappropriate content. There are about 500 hours of content uploaded to YouTube every minute, just as an example. That's a lot. That is way more than any kind of human moderator can keep track of. Yeah, YouTube and these other platforms have filters in place to stop the worst of the worst from getting through, anything extremely violent, extremely graphic, but these filters are not perfect, right? And things slip through the cracks all the time. That's why it's important for us as just regular users to report anything that is harmful, dangerous, illegal, or abusive, because odds are it probably just slipped through the cracks. Now, if we can report it, we can get it taken down and get it addressed immediately. But if we see something like that and ignore it, it's just going to keep happening to more and more people. And then lastly, this one down here at the bottom, 16% of child pornographic images are self-produced. Now, these are kids who maybe find somebody online, or maybe it's somebody that they go to school with, get into a romantic relationship, get curious, start exploring and experimenting, sending pictures, what have you. That is part of the story. Another part of the story is that there are a large percentage of kids that are either threatened or coerced into sending nude images or videos of themselves. We're going to talk about sextortion here and later in the presentation, which is all about kids being blackmailed for inappropriate pictures online. So this graphic here on your screen, I'm going to move this just so I can make sure that we all see it very clearly. This is a graphic showing the most popular social media apps amongst teenagers here in the United States. So starting up here with the top with YouTube, with 95% of teens ever having used it ever in their lives, right? A lot of us may be familiar with YouTube. We probably used it at least once before. That's going to be one of your most popular apps. You have TikTok with 67%, Instagram with 62%, and Snapchat with 59%. One that I believe is missing from this top 5 is Discord. Discord is an incredibly popular app, which really started amongst gamers, people who like to play video games online, but really has expanded to a lot of different areas, right? I was doing a parent presentation not too long ago, and one of the parents is in a master's program, and the professor uses Discord to stay in contact with the students and the TAs, right? So it's not just gamers, it's really just another social media platform that is very popular and one that is important to be aware of. So Discord, D-I-S-C-O-R-D. The app with the very steep decline right there in the middle of your screen, that's Facebook. It went from 71 to 32. We know kids, teenagers, a lot of young adults even are not even on Facebook anymore, because that is where we are. That's where the adults are. That's where their parents, their teachers, their aunts and uncles and grandparents, they don't want to be with us. They don't want to hang out with us. They don't want to share this platform. They want to be where their friends, where their peers are on TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Discord, etc. Your bottom 5 here, Twitter with 23%, Twitch with 20%, WhatsApp with 17%, Reddit with 14%, and Tumblr with 5%. If you are unfamiliar with any of these, my suggestion would be to just do a quick Google search, maybe even go as far as downloading the app on your phone, even if, or especially if you have kids in your life that you are responsible for, because odds are they are on at least one of these apps, right? So at least so we can be familiar with it, know how to help them block somebody, report somebody if they are ever being harassed or even bullied online, right? Making sure that we are familiar with all of these. Some risky trends that we're seeing really on all of the most popular social media platforms. I will start with risky behaviors. There was a study that came out in 23 or 22, I believe, that said basically the more time that kids and young people spend online, the more sensitive they become to the social rewards from risky online activity. Basically, the more time that kids are online, the more willing they are to do dangerous things because it is satisfying for them, right? Particularly in adolescence, that is one of the main drives for kids, is that kind of social approval, that belonging, that gratification. And so kids, we have seen, are willing to do things like the Tide Pod Challenge, which was eating laundry detergent. They're willing to do the Devious Slick Challenge, which is vandalism, right? They are willing to do risky, dangerous things because it gets them the views, the engagement, the follower request, the friends request, which is basically what their entire drive as an adolescent is, again, that kind of social approval, that social reward. So it may be inappropriate pictures as well, right? And as high quality, all of us have high quality cameras in our phone, or excuse me, in our pockets these days, including kids. And so as more and more children are spending more time online, number one, but also being exposed to pornography at incredibly young ages, there is a normalization of sexuality. I think that is happening at a younger and younger ages. And when I tell you that I hear from teachers and counselors about how 4th and 5th graders are sending these pictures back and forth, right? And so of course it's happening in middle school. Of course it's happening in high school. How can we get ahead of this and remind kids that not only is it a crime, right, but it is also incredibly unsafe to send naked pictures of your body. That ties directly into sugar baby culture. A sugar baby is somebody that exchanges sexual favors, maybe sexual pictures for money or some other sort of gift, right? And again, that has gotten incredibly popular, particularly amongst teens and young adults. I'll jump down to group messages. Group messages are very, they can be kind of tough, right? Because some group messages are great and wonderful, and it's a sports team, or it's a class that's trying to stay together. We're also seeing a lot of cyberbullying happening in these group messages, right? So you can get, it might be that same sports team, it might be the football team, all in one group message on Snapchat, for example, and then they invite one person, and it's all of those people piling on that one person. That happens very, very frequently. And on some of these platforms, you can't even leave the group message. So you just have to kind of sit there and take it or delete the app. Those are your only two options. And we know a lot of young people are not going to delete that app because that is still really important to them. That might be where some of their friends are, some of their community is. So they oftentimes just kind of trapped and have to endure the cyberbullying that's going on in these group messages. And then lastly, the promotion of self-harm, right? I think there is more of a conversation on mental health going on at last few years, which I think is wonderful and great, but I think it does sometimes veer into the unhealthy, where we promote unhealthy ways of coping, whether it's substance use, vaping, alcohol, or other more severe and violent forms of self-harm, right? So I think, again, if we can make sure that the conversation around mental health is one that promotes health and not harm, right? I think that is, again, our responsibility as the adults in the situation. A few terms to help us wrap our heads around the world that is the internet. Algorithm. The algorithm is the program that determines what you see when you open TikTok, YouTube, etc., right? The algorithm is designed to show you what you want to see. So you spend as much time on the platform as possible, because that's how these platforms make their money. We don't pay to use Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, but these companies are still incredibly profitable. They're making money off of us, right? The more time that we spend online, the more ads they can show us, the more money they can make. And so for these platforms, if they can tweak the algorithm to make it as perfect for us as possible, that's their goal. Their goal is money, which is important to remember. That is not necessarily the safety of its users, right? If Facebook is given the choice between money or protection, we don't necessarily know which way they're going to lean, right? So we have to take it upon ourselves to protect ourselves. A direct message, as opposed to a public message, for example, if somebody posts on your Facebook wall, that's pretty public. Anybody that has you as a friend on Facebook can see what was just posted on your wall. A direct message, either to your inbox or to a DM on Instagram, is private, right? And I want to emphasize these air quotes because there is nothing private. All that person has to do is take a screenshot of the message that you just sent them, and now that private message is public now, right? But that's the idea behind a direct message, is that it is more private. Disappearing content, as we talked about with Snapchat, for example, it disappears from a user's device sometimes, right? But it doesn't disappear, period. And I say sometimes because there are all kinds of ways to get around that disappearing content, right? Whether it's Snapchat, whether it's a story on Instagram that disappears, right? That content can still be saved, sometimes without the poster even knowing. So not being lulled into a false sense of safety by content that is supposed to disappear. So it is important that we know what the kids are saying. Slang is fun and funny and changes every 2 minutes. I am hoping that we are familiar with some of the terms on this list. And if we're not, let's take some time to become familiar with them, because some of these terms refer to self-harm or sexual content or drug references. And so if we are taking the steps to monitor a child's device, we're going through message, we're going through what they post on social media, and we see any of these things, it's important to know what they're talking about, because we may see it, have no idea what they're talking about, and think it's innocent, think it's harmless, when they may be talking about something very dangerous. So for example, this one in the middle, KMS/KYS. KMS can stand for kill myself, right? KYS standing for kill yourself. The one on the right, unalive. Those are two examples of ways to get around filters, right? Take TikTok, for example. You can't say, oh, so-and-so killed somebody, so-and-so. You can't say murder, death, things like that, but you can say unalive. You can use acronyms. So there are ways to get around filters, and there are ways to hide what it is that we're saying, because we assume that our parents don't know, right? So as parents, how can we become more familiar with the slang terms, whether it's plug? A plug is a drug dealer, right? A plug is somebody that you can get, or whether it's marijuana, pills, maybe alcohol. If you're underage, a plug is a supplier. A spam account. A spam account is another name for somebody's fake account. So again, say you are a parent of a 15-year-old child and you have them on Instagram. That's their main account, but they may have a spam account that you don't know about, where they actually post what they really want to say, what they really want to, any pictures or anything, right? So knowing that these things exist, so we can do everything we can to keep young folks safe. So it's not only the slang, right? But it's also the emojis, because a lot of the most popular emojis have secondary meanings that, again, may be sexual, drug-related, or violent in nature. So we get this information from an organization called BARK. We love BARK, BARK.us. They are, number one, a monitoring tool. So if you want to keep an eye on what a child is doing online, stop them from accessing different sites, that's part of what BARK does. BARK also does research on how young people use the internet, including their slang terms and the different emojis. So you can see right here on the screen, things like the bowl of noodles, the dump truck, the eggplant, right? All have different meanings. And again, if we see these on a child's device and don't know, we may think it's cute, playful, harmless, when it may be potentially sexual, potentially drug-related in nature. So for our own awareness, knowing what the slang means, knowing what the emojis mean, if you want to go to bark.us and then look up the emoji code, you can just type that into Google. It will show you the whole list. This is just some of the things. There are a lot more things available for you on BARK's website. Back to some of the concerning features on, again, the most popular apps. Number one being users of all ages. Again, the internet is a shared space. Even on platforms that are designed for children, you're going to have adults, and vice versa. Platforms designed specifically for adults, you're going to have children getting in there to be mischievous or rebellious or whatever it is, right? So knowing that a lot of apps have location tracking automatically enabled. We have to go in there and turn that off ourselves. So it's not only just our actual phone, but a lot of the apps as well. I think of Snapchat again. Snapchat has a feature called Snap Map, which pinpoints a user's location pretty precisely, right? They can tell which building you're in. If you're traveling, it'll show you like moving on the road. And it's pretty precise. It can show you what part of a specific building that a user is in, which is concerning for a lot of reasons, right? But it's also concerning knowing that kids will sometimes add random strangers on social media. And so that random stranger now has the same access to their information, their location, as their best friend does. Disappearing content, we've talked all about disappearing content, how there's no such thing as disappearing content. Live streaming, right? Kids, really anybody, being willing to do risky things on live streams, because it's hard to go back and check what happened on the live stream. Once the live stream is over, it's done. And be thinking that you can do. I was at a school last week, again, in elementary school last week. And one of the counselors was talking about how she had one of her students doing something on a live stream that she shouldn't have been doing. And one of the other students took a screenshot of it and was showing the entire school. So again, knowing that if we are on the internet, there is a record of everything that we're doing. And so we shouldn't do anything that would reflect poorly on us. Fake profiles. If you all have ever heard of that movie, that TV show Catfish, you know just how common it is for people to create fake profiles online. Catfish was a show about people who met somebody online, fell in love, and then they went to go meet up with that person in real life and realized that they were talking to a fake profile the whole time. This is an incredibly common story. It happens all the time. And so being able to spot those fake profiles beforehand, before we even engage with them. We'll talk about that here in just a second as well. But some tips on how to keep our social media as safe as possible. I know I just said there's no such thing as a private account, but making sure our accounts are on private is an essential step that we should take, right? Because it gives us more control. It doesn't give us complete control, but it gives us more control over who can see what we post, who can message us, etc. Having rules around strangers. When I am talking to students in really elementary, middle school, I'll give them a hypothetical situation. I'll say you're playing your favorite game online, whether it's Roblox, Among Us, Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, whatever you like to play. You meet somebody while you're playing online and they tell you everything about themselves. They say, oh, I live in Austin with my grandma. My sister goes to A&M. I'm 15 years old. My name is Susie, right? They say all these things about themselves. And they play with this random person every Friday night for a year. I'll ask them, is this person a stranger? And half the room will say yes, half the room will say no every time. And so how can we help kids understand that just because you're talking online all the time with somebody doesn't mean that you know who this person is? They are still a stranger. Unless you have met them in real life, you have to consider that they may have been lying about every single thing that they told you. So, right, having definitions, having rules around strangers. What can I say? Am I allowed even to accept strangers in the first place? Am I allowed to talk to them? What are the rules around strangers on social media? Making sure we have location tracking turned off, going through our different safety settings, not complaining online. Okay, this is crucial, right? When we have a child that is complaining about anything online, whether they just moved to a new school, having trouble making friends, their boyfriend, girlfriend just broke up with them, they're feeling lonely or ugly or unwanted, whatever it is, going through stuff at home. Maybe their parents are arguing a lot. Maybe dad just moved out. Maybe mom just lost her job. Whatever it is, right? Posting about any of these things on social media puts a target on a child's back, because there are people that are looking for children to take advantage of. And so if there is a child that's talking or posting about how they feel unwanted, about how they just need a friend, about how they don't want to be at home, if they're posting about any of that, right, that puts a target on their back. This graphic, this image on your screen is the grooming process. It is the process by which a child, teen, young adult, grown adult gets targeted and forced into a life of trafficking or extortion or blackmail, whatever happens. And again, it starts with the victim being targeted for whatever reason. Maybe they are oversharing online, maybe, and oftentimes it's somebody that the victim knows, knowing that at 90 to 95% of the time, abuse, trafficking is committed by somebody close to the victim, right? So whatever it is, that if it's an online stranger, they will create a fake profile and befriend their target, right? They will pretend to be the same age, might make their profile look like a pretty girl or a handsome dude, depending on whoever it is that they're trying to fool. And then they will try to gain the trust, try to figure out exactly what their victim needs, whether it's companionship, whether it's a good morning text every day, whether it's lunch money, a pair of shoes, whatever it is, right? They will figure out what that need is and fulfill that need. They will then move to isolate their victim, try to get complete control over their victim. They will try to separate the victim from their parents. They'll say things like, you know what, your parents don't need to know about this. They treat you like a kid anyway, just keep this between us. They'll say things like, oh, you know what, your friends are just jealous. Don't listen to them. They don't need to know what we're up to. They will say anything they can to isolate their victim so that they can capitalize, so that there is nobody else that can keep that victim safe. And then they will move to try to meet up in person or blackmail, extort, try to get sexual images, whatever their end goal is. Again, this is how it happens right here on your screen. Sextortion. This is the definition of sextortion taken from the FBI. And they define sextortion as a crime that happens when somebody under the age of 18 shares sexual pictures or videos with somebody online. That person then turns around and blackmails that child, threatening to distribute that material if that child doesn't either send them more pictures, meet up with them in person for sexual activity, send them money, whatever that predator's end goal is. Few statistics. The primary age group being targeted is teenage boys between the ages of 14 and 17 years old. You have these predators creating, again, fake profiles, pretending to be girls around these boys' ages, convincing them to send explicit pictures and videos, and then proceeding to blackmail them. During the pandemic from 19 to 21, the number of sextortion reports submitted to NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, more than doubled. And because everybody was online more. Not only were kids online more, probably unsupervised, didn't have the necessary cyber safety conversations before they got a phone or a tablet or the computer from the school, but you also had adults that were online a lot more too, looking for those kids. And they found them, right? And so we saw the number of sextortion reports double during the pandemic. And then I'll just jump straight down here to the last one. Among kids who have shared their own nudes, 43% admitted that they shared them with somebody that they did not know in real life. So this wasn't a child who thought that they were communicating with their boyfriend, girlfriend online. They knew that this was a complete stranger and still decided to send the pictures anyway. So again, how can we have conversations around the dangers of sexting, the dangers of just communicating with people that we don't know online? Again, it all comes back down to prevention, making sure we have private accounts, rules for engaging with strangers. But if none of that works and we find ourselves in a situation where we are being extorted, blackmailed, harassed, it is crucial that we do not comply and that we stop responding to that person, that we do not give in, that we do not give them what they're looking for, that we do not give them any ammo or any reason to continue harassing us. If it's happening online, reporting that user on whatever platform it's happening. There is a way to report a user on every single platform. So figuring out, it's usually there's going to be, you go to that person's page and then there's going to be 3 dots or 3 bars somewhere that will take you to settings that will allow you to report a user. Doing that is crucial because odds are if they're harassing one student, they're harassing multiple. So if we can get there, if we can report them, we can get their account taken down. It might be temporary, it might be permanent, but at least reporting that user on that platform and then telling somebody in real life as well, whether it's somebody at school, teacher, counselor, principal, school resource officer. So of course, somebody at home, parent, grandparent, older sibling, older cousin, somebody. And then if you want to submit a police report, do that as well, right? Or of course, contact Crime Stoppers. There are lots of different avenues to get justice and peace, right? Just making sure that you pursue whichever is appropriate, however many you want, really. I recommend reporting to as many as possible. It is crucial. Right?
Joshua, there is a question in the chat box about, what if there's a video of my child online who was uploaded by a third party? We've been trying to get it removed. How do we go about escalating that?
Okay, perfect. So there are a few different avenues. We have number one, the Internet Crime Complaint Center, the letter I, the letter C, and then the number 3.gov. That is one place to report, of course, internet crimes, and especially if it is sexual content of a child, absolutely reporting that to IC3. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they also have a tip line to report that. And then NCMEC also has a service called Take It Down. So I believe it's ncmec.com/take it down. And that is a service that does exactly what you're asking for, right? If there is
I'm sorry, what was that last one?
NCMEC, ncmec.com, or it might be .org/take it down. That is a service that does exactly that. They remove sexual content of anybody under the age of 18 that is being spread on different platforms. Now, I will say not all platforms have signed up for that service, which is a conversation that can be had around how difficult it is to hold these platforms accountable. But there are some that have signed up for that service, and hopefully they will be able to get those videos, those images removed. If we ever do find ourselves in a situation where somebody is blackmailing us and actively sending us messages, it is crucial that we preserve any kind of evidence. Our first impulse might be to delete it because we're in a panic, we're afraid, we don't want to deal with it, we want to distance ourselves from it, but making sure that we preserve any evidence just in case we do decide to report to the police, to Crime Stoppers, we can show them exactly what was sent to us, by whom, and the police can do their own investigation from there, but just making sure that we are giving them as much information as possible. Again, knowing how to spot a fake profile before we even engage with them, before we even accept their message or accept their friend request and start exchanging messages. Somebody that creates a fake profile with the goal of harassing and manipulating people is not going to put a picture of their real face on there, right? It's either going to be blurry, distorted. It might be a stock profile picture, some sort of meme, right? But that's going to be one quick to spot red flag. Is this a picture of somebody's real face or not? The second thing, is there incomplete or inconsistent profile information? Do they even bother filling out a biography, the bio section? And if they do, right, does the information line up? If they say that they are 15 in their bio, but you start communicating and they say that they're actually 18 or 19, right? Inconsistent information, another red flag. If they have limited site activity, not really liking or commenting or engaging with people, if there aren't a lot of interactions with other users on that platform, again, this is somebody who did not create this profile with the goal of hanging out, of staying connected with actual people in their lives, but they created that profile with the goal of malicious deeds, right? So again, little red flags, maybe big red flags that we can spot and block that profile before we even decide to engage with them.
One thing that I have seen people use that has been very helpful, if you get a message or something and someone's trying to befriend you, you can Google image search their picture. And, you know, sometimes people will put 2 or 3 pictures of themselves, and you Google image that search and you're like, oh, that's John on this site and Andy on this site and Joshua on this site. And over here, he is on this site being someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way as well. You can, reverse Google search or Google image search their profile picture, any other pictures that they may post on their profile. Yeah. There are also random chats. So these random chats, think of these random chats as a Zoom meeting, just like this, but you have no idea who is on the other side of the call. You have never met before. You will most likely never, ever meet again. They may not even be in this country. That is what these random chats are. And they are very popular, right? These were around when I was a kid 15 years ago in middle school. And they were bad then, right? Omegle, there were jokes around my friends about how bad Omegle was. Omegle just recently got shut down a few weeks ago, but Omegle and the rest of these platforms are really dangerous because there is no kind of moderation. You don't need to create a profile. You don't need to enter any kind of information. You can literally open up the laptop, go to omegle.com, whatever, monkey.com, and now you're talking to a complete stranger via video chat. I was speaking to a middle school, some middle school students about cyber safety. We were talking about Omegle. And then after the presentation, one of the seventh graders, she came up to me and said, yeah, I was on Omegle with a friend of mine last Friday. And I was talking to a guy who was trying to get me to do something that I didn't want to do. And the thing is, this young lady felt trapped. She felt like she couldn't just close down Omegle, close the laptop. She felt like she had to do what this person online was asking her, was forcing her to do. And so again, just being aware of the different platforms that exist and some of the concerns and dangers that are on all of them. Dating apps. So not only have we seen children creating fake profiles on these dating apps and communicating with adults, but there are similar apps for children as well, designed to get them to meet one another and begin talking. Now, that's concerning for a lot of reasons, right? One of them being that as soon as you have a space dedicated for kids, you're going to have adults come in and try to corrupt the space, right? To make it dangerous. So not only that, right? But you just have kids, a lot of times unmoderated, who are communicating, talking, sharing things that they shouldn't. Sometimes, and I'm sorry, I need to go back because we need to update this list, right? There have been a couple that have come out just in the last few months since we last updated this presentation. There is, for example, Wiz, WIZZ. There's lots more actually, and they are popping up all the time. And so how can we as the adults keep an eye on what's going on? Because the kids know, so how can we keep up? Gaming, moving into gaming very quickly. There may be the misconception that it's mainly boys and young men that game. Truly, we're seeing a 50-50 split between boys and girls. The main concern for me is that it's mainly adults that are playing video games. Video games have been around for not forever, for a few decades. And I grew up playing video games. I grew up with an Xbox, with a PlayStation Portable, with a little Game Boy, right? I've been playing video games my entire life. Talking about video games, let's start with the difference between single player and multiplayer. When you're playing a single player game, it is literally you versus the game. You're trying to complete the mission, trying to complete the story. You're not really talking to anybody else, any other real life people, real people. When you're playing a multiplayer game, that's when you get into things like Roblox, like Fortnite, like Call of Duty, where you have people from all over the world in one game lobby that can play together. And so when you, again, think about how a lot of those people may be strangers, especially if you're playing a game rated M, which is your Call of Duties, your Grand Theft Autos, your Red Dead Redemptions, your most popular video games. Oftentimes, those are going to be adults who are playing in those multiplayer game lobbies. So it's important to know that distinction, but also know what the different game ratings are. A game rated E for everyone is very, very different than a game rated M for mature. A game rated E that's family friendly, it might be a game like Harry Potter, right? Fantasy violence. It might be a sports game, a racing game, right? Anybody can play it. Your games rated M for mature are going to be very violent, very graphic, drugs, alcohol, maybe even sexual content. And so knowing what a kid, what a user is going to be exposed to as they are playing that video game. Knowing what the game ratings mean, discussing emotions, right? If you have a child that is playing a video game and they're not good at the video game, that can be a very frustrating experience. And I'm speaking from experience. These games are designed to be immersive, right? And so if you keep on losing over and over and over again, you keep dying over and over again, that can be a very frustrating experience. And you can see kids have extremely emotional, explosive reactions as they are playing a game. Not only that, if that gaming gets interrupted for whatever reason, maybe it's time for dinner, time to go to bed, whatever, just time to shut it off, you've been playing for too long. We are also seeing kids have extreme emotional reactions to that being disrupted. So how can we discuss emotions, keeping personal information private? And I recognize I have 5 more minutes, so I'm going to try to get through this.
That's okay. Go on.
keeping personal information private. When I was playing video games, my gamer tag, my online username was Joshua Webb 1231. My full name and my birthday, right? Not
Hey, that's my birthday too.
It really?
Yeah.
It was easy for me to remember, and it's easy for anybody to remember, right? One very simple way that I was putting myself at risk. I was making myself vulnerable. So that is just an example. In what ways are we making our personal information private? And how can we make sure that we are keeping ourselves safe? Wrapping up here with a few monitoring tools that I want to show you, a few videos. We've talked a little bit about Bark. Again, Bark, they published the emoji code, the slang terms, all the things like that. They are also a monitoring tool. So if you want more control over what websites and apps a child is able to access, Bark gives you that control. Bark also scans text messages, emails, social media comments for mentions of violence, sexual content, self-harm, and will actually send you a notification if it does sense any of that, so that you can kind of have that conversation as soon as possible. Custodio, the one here in the middle, is the only one with the free option. Excuse me, both Bark and NetNanny have paid subscriptions, but they are all, wonderful, wonderful tools for you. So I was wrong. One more slide on laws, and laws. Reminding children, if they are under the age of 18, they cannot send pictures of their naked body to anybody. Even if that person is their boyfriend, girlfriend, they've been dating for 5 years, that is illegal. If they receive a picture like that from their boyfriend or girlfriend, or a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, because we know, unfortunately, pictures like that get sent around all the time. If they receive a picture like that, delete it immediately. If they hang on to it, right, that is also a crime. Threats, any kind of threat, especially a threat against a school, but even a threat against a classmate, some random person on the internet, they're all treated very, very severely, very, very seriously, right? So making sure that they know, it doesn't matter if you use a VPN, a burner account, right? There are ways to find the place and the user from which the threat originated, and that user will face very serious consequences. David's Law. David's Law is the law that makes cyberbullying a crime in the state of Texas. If it is affecting a child's ability to show up 100% in the classroom, right, the school has the ability to address it, even if it's happening on a field trip, on a school bus, if it's happening online. David's Law gives schools more power to address cyberbullying if it is affecting the mental well-being of a student at school. So wrapping up here with 2 videos on how to have these conversations with any children in our lives, one for little kids, one for tweens, and then if there are any questions, I will happy to take questions at that time.
Playing dress up, laughing at potty humor, and being afraid of the dark sound like your 5, 6, or 7-year-old? Even though they're still little kids, chances are they will tell you otherwise. That's because now they're in school, making friends, reading books, and using devices. This is a great time to establish rules around tech use and seek out apps, games, movies, and shows that reinforce what they're learning. Teach them how the world works, and model qualities like kindness and empathy. As for books, find stories that tap into their interests and encourage a love of reading. And remember to co-view, co-play, and talk with them about what they see often. The bottom line, you are their first and best teacher. For more tips and advice, visit us at commonsense.org.
Alrighty, one more video for you all.
Your 10, 11, and 12-year-old is growing up. Now they're into their friends, how they look, and they're dealing with peer pressure. They likely have their first smartphone and are eager to be on social media. Teaching them how to be safe, smart, respectful, and responsible online is key right now. Make sure to set rules around tech use, spot check their phones, and enforce consequences for misuse. Encourage their creativity and educational growth by seeking out YouTube channels, apps, websites, and games that teach them new skills. And find TV shows and movies that demonstrate inspiring acts of heroism, kindness, and achievement. And of course, stay involved. It makes a huge difference. For more tips and advice, visit us at commonsense.org.
Alrighty, friends. So,
Joshua, we
Yes,
did
ma'am.
have one more question that I hope you can address a little bit. Everybody, there's also slides more about Consolidated Planning Group and setting up a meeting with us, but I want to hear Joshua talk a little bit more about
Your 10, 11, and 12-year-old is growing up. Now they're into their friends.
How they look, and they're dealing with peer pressure.
They likely have their first smartphone and are eager.
On social media, teaching them how to be safe.
Joshua, what can parents do to get over the fear that you've just put into them?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's a great question. I'm glad that you asked that. I think having conversations, it starts with the conversations. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do a lot at once. How do I'll just keep talking. It starts with conversations, right? Knowing that we can take the steps to just start figuring out what these different apps are. So whether it's Discord, whether it's Twitch, Instagram, taking the steps to figure out how it works, and then having a conversation. I talk to a lot of parents who have developed a formal contract with their kids, for example. Say, hey, as your parent, I'm going to go through your phone every day. If you see anything, if I see anything that makes me uncomfortable, I'm taking your phone. Like having these kind of written agreements, or just you as a parent deciding what are the rules for your house and doing that in an effort to keep your kids safe. I think I also hear from parents that don't want to be too overbearing, that want to make sure that their child has privacy. And I think that's just up to you and your household, however you think it's best, but finding some way to be involved and keeping an eye on what's happening. I think it's the frequent conversations. It's having these constant check-ins about, hey, what did you see? And hypotheticals. Have you ever seen anything that made you feel scared? Or what would you do if you saw XYZ, right? Having these conversations well in advance. So if we ever do find ourselves in a situation, we know how to respond. We're not trying to react in the moment. We've talked this out. We have a plan, and now we know how to move forward.
And your kids generally are not going to like it when you want to see their phone or you want to start asking questions, but it's just so important. And, one thing I always used to use is, well, if you want us to keep paying for that phone, you're going to let me look at it once in a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I did get just this last slide up in case you want to set up an appointment with Consolidated Planning Group. Now, we are not the same company as Joshua. We are not the cybersecurity people. We are financial advisors, but we would love to talk to you about any further questions you might have about planning for your loved one's future, planning for retirement, investments, life insurance, things like that. And we will send out all of these slides. I am going to try to include the chat box so that we can get all of those links that Joshua was talking about out to you as well. And if you have any questions, I know we would love to hear from you. I'm sure Joshua will be willing to talk with you. Please just reach out if you need anything from either one of us. All right. Everybody have a fantastic day. Enjoy the rest of the week. And again, Joshua, thank you so much for joining us today and for presenting this great information.
Of course. My pleasure. Thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions, happy to be a resource for you.
Thanks a lot. Bye, everybody.